women need to have the same opportunities to shape digital technologies.
I am turning to all women active and interested in digitalization.
And position young women and girls as not only consumers but also producers within the digital sector.
The industry is ready to embrace us all, and when we get into the industry, we will shape our own future.
Hello, and welcome to Women Leading Digital, a podcast by GIZ, where we discuss digital transformation and technology with leading voices from around the world. I'm Miriam Oliver, and I am part of the Gig Economy Initiative at the GIZ. So today, we turn our gaze to the digital platforms themselves, looking at what platforms look like now, explore what solutions can enable structural equality, and how these can benefit not only workers, but customers and businesses alike.
These type of works and these type of services need legal rights, need benefits, need better incomes, need health insurance.
If you're not designing inclusively, you're going to be hurting your business, and it's going to show.
I'd like to welcome my guests for today's conversation. Melina Cruz is a tech and social entrepreneur. Melina is the co-founder and COO of Homely, the first on-demand based marketplace in Mexico to match trusted cleaners with households and businesses. Hello, and welcome, Melina.
Hi, Miriam. So happy to be part of this conversation.
And Katie Schlot is a design and innovation leader based in Chicago. As the founder of IA's network, Design for Women, Katie is committed to advancing how companies solve for and address gender equity in their solutions. Hello, and welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me, Miriam. Excited to have a conversation with both you and Melina today.
I'd like to begin our conversation today by discussing how digital labor platforms are starting to alter women's relationship to their work. Maybe we can start with you, Melina.
I think there's three big issues we have discovered in the past 8 years or so. The first one is based on the technological inclusion the workers have. So what's the products they are already interacting with? How can we create more intuitive platforms considering the tools that they are already using? The second one goes around understanding fully the digital economy. It's a matter of letting them know the benefits, the difference between being a contractor or a full-time employee, and actually understanding why is it important to have a platform in between and how does the platform actually adds value. And the last one, there's like an initial frustration over the expectations that they are having when providing a service through the platform. So in our case, cleaners, there's a lot of things happening around besides the frustration of providing a service, right? Or meeting a new customer.
So, Katie, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's so interesting, Melina. Those platforms for women seem like, oh, they're going to offer a lot of flexibility and they're going to offer me a lot of potential. And those things are true, but there are some big hurdles, right? There's the educational hurdles that you brought up, learning a new platform, learning more about what it takes to almost be your own business owner, because you're transitioning from being a contractor, even though you might be on that platform, to having to, like you said, worry about how do I do my taxes? How do I be my own bookkeeper? There's a lot of things under the surface that have to be worked through before you can actually maximize that potential.
Yeah, you're so right. I read in the 2021 Mobile Gender Gap report that men are 21% more likely to be online than women globally. But then when we look at least developed countries, that gap actually increases to 52%. And because of this disparity, so much of the online world is designed by men and for men. Now, looking specifically at the platforms themselves, has the development and design of these digital labor platforms generally been inclusive, would you say?
I'm probably going to have to say a resounding no. I think if they were being designed inclusively, with race, with gender, language, economic considerations kind of at the center, we wouldn't have unsafe working conditions or gender-based discrimination as kind of commonplace on these platforms. I think we wouldn't have violence and abuse as such a commonplace on some of these platforms, specifically for women. I think you're also looking at pay disparity. And I know some of this comes along with the way the data and the algorithms pull those pieces in. I think it was last year, the World Economic Forum shared that men out-earn, 48% more than women in some of the sectors. And if you're not designing at the center of those considerations, you're not going to have a platform that is designed inclusively.
I would really like to take like one step back and talk about a learning we had when we tried to do like self-onboarding process for our cleaners. We were asking for the cleaner on the self-onboarding process to plug in the data of their bank accounts. Sadly, we discovered most of the women that were aiming to apply to the platform did not have a bank account. And it's mainly because women are not in charge of the economy of the home, or they're more used to be having cash instead of being formally included in the economy. Even in the communication that the platforms are having, they're not showing in reality a lot of diversity towards who can join the platform and who can be benefit. In the beginning, we were just having female cleaners showed on the platform. So of course, if you're a male, then even though you are a cleaner or you have performed this type of services, the level of encouragement we are giving you to be part of a platform, it's zero. We're not actually giving you visibility that you can be part of us.
Melina, you're so right. The images are so powerful. And if people don't see themselves included in those images or in the language, the likelihood that they'll use those products or services or join are low. You're absolutely right. And that's much more commonplace than you would think. You're just not used to looking for it. And once you see it, you kind of can't unsee it, to be honest.
Yeah, and so I would like to think that these additions make the platform, if anything, more attractive for every stakeholder who is involved. We've been speaking about the need for inclusive design. But now, how do you actually go about making something inclusive?
You know, there's a couple of factors to consider. Let's start maybe with the team. Examining who's on the team, whose voices are represented and heard. You don't have to have every age, race, economic condition, language represented, but you need to be aware. I think that's the most important. And so I think from a design and innovation standpoint, when we're designing products and services, and maybe it's from the ground up, we're thinking about using methodology like ethnography. So our researchers would go into the field and observe people, kind of see what they are doing, where are they struggling, where are they creating workarounds, and understand how they can incorporate those types of elements into the product. One important thing as you consider inclusivity in design, especially with the gig economy, is understanding privacy or safety concerns. So understanding what methods can you use that will really be able to get you that information, but also engage in a really safe way.
In our end, I think that the person that leads product in Homely has done an amazing job with this, being conscious that he has not all the answer and he's not going to be the one taking the final decisions, and bringing different voices of the team to the table. So bringing people from the ops team, from the support team, and asking them like, what is not working? For us, I think we have really understood that the centerpiece of the company we have is keepers and cleaners. And if they're not understanding the product, and if they're not seeing added value on what we're doing, and if they're not having benefits over being in the platform, then we don't have no business.
I really appreciate your sharing, Melina. You know, it might seem obvious, but it helps us understand real-world solutions that are exploring the value of inclusive design. And both of you have provided such fantastic examples of how to actually then put that into practice and go about doing it. Placing the worker experience at the center means that we can get closer to creating decent jobs, which not only provide a service, but actually have meaning for that worker. So, to continue on the solutions train, Melina, what other ways has Homely platform worked inclusive design into its operations?
Most of them are pretty basic. The first one is the access to data they have. When they start to be part of the platform, most of the time they don't have access to data every single time. So we want to create a product that it's not going to be only running when they have data or consuming a lot of the data they have on their phones. Point A. Point B, again, taking into consideration that most of them are single moms, and we know that single moms tend to take care of last minute issues, right? So something happened, I need to go to the school of my kid. Someone is sick, I need to take care of that sick person. So taking that into consideration, we needed to create a check-in process, like, are you already on your way to the service? If not, something happened, then you can have access to a human. Everything we have provided through the platform is considering the living situations and the backgrounds of the different type of cleaners we have joined the platform throughout the years.
Yeah, Melina, this is a great example of substantive inclusion. Because these features of Homely enabled women's participation in the digital economy on terms that favoured them and on terms that are in accord with their needs. Katie, do you have any other examples of platforms getting inclusive design right?
Some of the platforms have continued to advance. So unfortunately, I think they've been born out of not designing inclusively from the beginning. But if you think about easy examples like Uber and safety, right? That was not born out of inclusive design, but the solutions that they're now coming up with are more conceived as to the safety and concerns that women may have on that platform. And when you see big tech focusing on inclusive design, other people start to pay attention. Other companies say, should I be doing that? So it's important. Being competitive in the market is important. And if that's what it takes sometimes for one or two companies to start having these types of roles and being very intentional about how they're designing, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, and thank you, Katie. I think it's inspiring to think that we can see this trickle-down effect and that there is real movement and change starting to happen. While you were speaking there, I was reminded that work is a form of validation for everybody, regardless of the sector, regardless of if they do it for 2 hours or for 60 hours. And I just wanted to touch on this idea about inclusion and inclusive design correlating with dignity and a sense of validation. How do you feel design can impact and empower these notions in women?
There's a really horrible story that we had one time where a cleaner asked, like, do I need to take my clothes off, or is there something going to be happening bad to me if I enter to your office space? And we were shocked. That's the reality that these people are facing. How do you make a safe space and a safe company, not only a safe product? How do you let them know that you have their back? Because these type of works and these type of services need legal rights, need benefits, need better incomes, need health insurance. That's what they deserve. Afterwards, it was amazing when, government decided to do some changes. And the other day I was driving in the city and I saw this massive spectacular in one of the biggest avenues that said, like, you should be giving legal rights to your domestic worker. And I wanted to cry. This is what we have been working for the past 8 years, visibility and dignity.
So I wanted to ask you both about AI and the associated algorithms that are a feature of many gig platforms. How does this then affect inclusivity in design? And why is it important to ensure that we are using diverse and inclusive data sets on a labor platform?
This is going to sound super simplistic, but I think if you have a platform created and designed, for example, by a blue circle, and you use only data from blue circles, then your output will only recognize and pull back blue circles. It sounds simplistic, but in AI, the output is only as good as the input, and that input has to be based on inclusive and diverse data sets. So if the algorithms that are kind of fundamental to building and matching on these platforms don't consider issues that are inherently human, like safety, for example, they're created to make platforms efficient and fast and kind of treat humans like machines. But there are human considerations, and especially female identifying considerations, So I think it is important as we consider what the algorithms are based on and how they are either supporting people on those platforms or kind of pushing them down.
We, again, reached a really horrible part of society where you would think of a cleaner as a typical stereotype, right? And we're like, how can we avoid that trap? So actually, the process over assignation of services, it's based on location and availability as two main issues, right? That's like the two first biggest aspects. The second aspects that the platform or the algorithm takes into consideration are the restrictions, but it's funny because it's the restrictions inputted by the cleaner. So if the cleaner has some allergies over pets and the user, the homeowner, marks that they have pets, then we're not going to show you that cleaner. Apart from that, it's basically you, user, take the decision, right? And we're going to show you that not all the cleaners look the same. That you can have a male cleaner assigned to your service.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on what you mentioned there about perpetuating the bias. You know, I think that's the real problem that we have coming towards us with AI and with algorithms. If we don't actively overcome it through methods like you just explained, we're only going to continue the bias. And now I'm just going to jump straight into the next question, and that is inclusive design economically viable for the digital labor platforms?
There's no way we would not think about it as part of the business, because it's from that's the starting point from where the business was born. So being able for them to have better incomes and health insurances and tools for them to have other skills, not only cleaning skills. Every time we launched something on the cleaner side, we were thinking over that's what should be done, right? Not on how can we actually monetize over this. But then in the end, these type of things are actually part of the benefits that we are somehow being able to monetize over, because cleaners are sticking into the platform, right? You're generating that stickiness for the gig worker. And then the final user actually wants that stickiness with the cleaner. They want this constant service provided by the same people if possible, or the same person if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Melina, the way you described it, it's almost like you're leaving money on the table by not doing inclusive design. Because to your earlier point and how you just described it, imagine launching features that didn't work for the workers or for the users on the platform. You've just wasted time, developer time, money, designer time, and now you need to redo that work. So it's almost by including these inclusive design practices, you're helping yourself to make the right decision. So you're launching something that you don't have to redo.
As we wrap our conversation, I'd like to look to the future of inclusive design. What are your thoughts on standardizing the strategy of inclusive design on labor platforms?
I don't think it's necessarily at this time about standardization. I think that it's showcasing that the outcomes of leveraging inclusive design make you more successful. It'll make you more successful with your users. It'll make you more successful with your business. So for example, if engagement is increased or earnings are increased for women on these platforms, it leads to more economic prosperity. That feels very meta, that feels very large, but I think more companies need to talk about how they're using it. They need to back it up and really show that they're listening and that they're observing what's needed by these populations. And by making and solving these challenges more specifically, you make it more normative. And I think eventually, if you're not designing inclusively, you're going to be hurting your business, and it's going to show.
Melina, I think you're very much a part of this trend of customized approaches, as Katie said. But do you have any thoughts on this yourself?
I think something that really brings me hope, it's that we have more conscious humans nowadays. We're like a more conscious society. And if you have more conscious humans, then you're going to be having more conscious businesses. People on the table are going to be more encouraged to ask the hard questions. So as business owners and companies should be worrying not about understanding the best strategy, but how can we actually become a safer space where everyone can be raising the hand.
Thank you, Melina. It is definitely a collective effort to understand what this means. I can only say thank you to the both of you for breaking down what can be sometimes a pretty complex issue. Inclusive design is essential for the success of gig workers and vital to the longevity of platforms. So thank you for being here today, Katie, and thank you for being here today, Melina, and goodbye.
Thank you so much, Miriam.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for joining us for our series on women in the gig economy. Women Leading Digital is brought to you by GIZ, the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, and is produced by Bear Radio.